Welcome to the Coffee Break Show. Today, we're going to be talking about human potential and the dimensions by which you can go and dig in and have more success, more achievement, more of you, quality of life. We're with Jim Marshall today, and we'll be right back. You're on the Success Secrets for Business, Family, and Life channel. This is the Coffee Break Show. I'm Vickie Helm. And today, we're getting towards the next year and we're into the next year. And we're all talking about how do we get better? How do we do better? How do we become better? How can we unleash our human potential? How can we access something in us that is going to help us design and get the life we want today? And today we are with Jim Marshall, who is an expert in polymathic intellectual and what is it? Septemic, and that's the site. Septemic development. It's human potential development. Septemics.com. But let's just start out with what is Septemics? How did you get involved in this? And what tripped your trigger? How did you get to where you are with human potential and human design?
Okay, well, those are three very different questions, but I'll be happy to answer all of them. First of all, let me say that I am the discoverer of hitherto unknown natural phenomena, which greatly aid in the understanding of people, from which I created a revolutionary practical philosophic system called Septemics, and published it in the book, Septemics, Hierarchies of Human Phenomena. As far as what Septemics is a philosophical science based on the fact that many phenomena related to human beings occur in a sequence of 7 levels. Literally, the word Septemics means of or pertaining to 7. Septemics comprises a collection of scales or sequences, each of which breaks down various human phenomena into a hierarchy of 7 steps. There are 35 such scales, each of which between them spans the spectrum of human experience, by which I mean any situation which arises in the life of any person can successfully be analyzed by one or more of these scales.
Whoa, that's a big claim. That's a very big claim. And I definitely, and I'm sorry, I'm choking here a little bit. I'm sneezing, but that was very interesting what you said. And I'm wondering if you could say more about that.
Sure. First of all, I want to say 24 of the scales apply primarily to individuals, and 11 of them apply primarily to groups. Now, I wrote this book to help people. Each of these scales provides a user with an infallible way of determining the salutariness or beneficialness of any group, individual, or activity. If the group, individual, or activity moves persons or groups up these scales, it's beneficial or positive. If it moves them down, it's detrimental or negative. More importantly, just finding out what level you or another person is at on any scale is by itself enlightening and beneficial. And finally, once you know the actual level of a person on any scale, you can then improve the person by moving them up one level at a time. All of these advantages represent major steps forward for society. Each of these scales is an axis against which to evaluate human behavior, and combined, they empower one to understand, predict, and manage human affairs to a degree hitherto unattainable by most.
Did you say human fears?
To
manage human fears? Did you say to manage human fears? Did I hear you right?
No, affairs.
Manage human affairs. Thank you. I'm with you now. Okay, so let's break this down. I mean, we have the scholastic view of this, but let's break this down. How did you get into this?
Okay. I was accepted into an elite engineering school at the age of 16, and I attended on academic scholarship. I was a natural engineer. By the time I had my bachelor's degree, Bachelor of Science degree, I realized that I did not want to engineer anything physical, such as electrons or airfoils or motors or gears. I wanted to engineer the human psyche because
Cool.
that is where we are failing miserably.
Say more about that. Where do you
95%
think
of,
we're failing? What's the areas where we're failing?
okay, well, 95% of the problems that people have in industrialized societies are problems with people. Divorce, bankruptcy, people cheat you, people lie to you.
Interesting.
And this is because people do not understand people. So I had a long career as a human development engineer, working one-on-one with hundreds of clients for many thousands of hours. As I was doing so, I started to observe that my clients were improving in ways that were predictable to me. Now, I never told this to anyone, but I made notes. And as the years went by, I came to realize my clients were going up scales. In other words, the person would be at a certain level on a certain axis. And I would know that as a result of the session, he was going to go up to the next level, and I would know what that level was.
And does
So
that mean
I would be able to.
when you say level, because this is what's interesting to me, because is this level in human consciousness? Is this when you say up a level, is it an intellectual level, an emotional level, a spiritual level? How do we do that? I find this fascinating what you're saying, because I know when I've worked with people, I totally can see when that next level is, whether it's spiritual, emotional, or, productivity even. And I'm wondering, what do you mean when you say you can see them kind of level up?
Well, as I said, Septemics has 35 scales, each of which is a different axis. Each of those scales has 7 levels. Every human being is at some level on every scale.
Interesting.
And once you understand the scale, you can see what level the person is at. And once you know the level, you know exactly what the person is going to do on this axis.
Of course.
And
That makes
as far as yourself, once you know your level, you can go up to the next level so you can improve yourself across 35 different axes. Now you have to realize that each of these scales is unique. And that's good because between them, they cover the entire spectrum of human experience. So I would be happy to read to you the names of the 35 scales, and that would tell your listeners what subject matter we're talking about.
would love that. Actually would love that. And then
Okay.
I want to
Okay.
know, how do you determine what level you're on? That's the question that I would have.
Okay. All of this is strictly empirical. There's no theory of septemics. I simply observed these phenomena and over a period of many decades wrote them down and then had them verified in front of me thousands and thousands of times. Now, let me tell you what the names of the scales are because then you'll know what axis we're talking about. The scale, these are the individual scales. The scale of basic purposes, the scale of personal influence, the scale of choice, the scale of permeation, the scale of thought, the scale of identity, the scale of evaluation, the scale of motivation, the scale of control, the scale of stopping, the scale of scholarship, the scale of literacy, the scale of human ability, the scale of memory, the scale of spiritual identity, the scale of mental deletion, the scale of aberration, the scale of physical fitness, the scale of justification, the scale of belief, the scale of equanimity, the scale of attack, the scale of conflict, and the scale of reaction. And these are the group scales: the scale of relationships, the scale of life spheres, the scale of government, the scale of civilization, the scale of survival, the scale of management, the scale of exchange, the scale of communication, the scale of allegiance, the scale of sexuality, and the scale of politics. Each one of these scales has the potential to dramatically improve the life of the reader by finding his level on that scale and moving himself up, or finding someone else's level and helping them to move up. Now, I want to hasten
Interesting.
to add, never tell anyone his level on any scale. It's
Yes.
unethical and counterproductive. I wrote this book in such a way it's not hard to use. If you look at the material, 27 years of observation of using this book has shown me people find their levels very easily. They may need a little assistance, but I built most of that into the book. For example, there is a glossary, not only in front of each of the 35 chapters, even in front of the introduction, there's a glossary. So I'm giving you the definitions of the words that I'm using. Each of the 35 scales has a name, as I just read to you, and the name has a synonym. So that gives you some depth of understanding. Also, each level, each of the 7 levels on each of the 35 scales has a name, and that has a synonym. So between the synonyms and the glossaries, it's very easy to see what this is about. This is not obscure or inscrutable. And I'll give you an anecdote to demonstrate that. About 20 years ago, I was talking to a friend of mine, just talking about politics and government. And I said, wait a minute, let me show you something. So I opened up the transcript. The book was in a transcript form at that point. And I handed it to him, the scale of government. I didn't say anything. I just gave it to him. So he took it. He looked at it for about a second, and he pointed. He said, there, right there, I'm right there. He found his level on that scale without my even suggesting that that's what the scale was for. That's
Interesting.
how easy this is to use.
Yes.
And
So
I'll tell
let
you
me
another
ask you
thing that
something.
go ahead.
On each scale, there's 7 levels to each scale. Yes. Is it
Yes.
possible in one human lifetime to scale all 35 of those scales? And if so,
Are
what
you
happens? Why are we scaling the scale? What
okay?
happens when
So
we
first of
scale the
all,
scale?
well, when a person improves, he's going up one or more of the scales. When a person deteriorates, he's going down one or more of the scales. When a person crashes, okay, I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a guy, his wife and daughter are killed in an automobile accident, right? He's bereft. He becomes a
Absolutely.
drunk. He loses his job. He can't make his house payment. He winds up as a homeless person out on the street and a drug addict, okay? That person has crashed.
I get
And what
it.
happened was, technically, he went down all of the levels of all of the scales, and he is now at or near the bottom of all of the scales.
Interesting.
So I can tell you statistically, very few people are at or near the top of all of the scales. Very few.
I
I'm
see.
talking about maybe 1 or 2%.
Hmm.
A larger percent, maybe 4 or 5%, are at or near the bottom of all of the scales. The vast majority of the people, something like 94%, are high on some scales and low on other scales. In other words, they're in the middle.
This
And
is
it's
so fascinating. I
normal.
am literally riveted. I'm so sorry. I'm
Yes.
literally riveted to what you're saying because in the human potential thing, we have a tendency to only see or talk about improving one thing, let alone identifying 35 things. Now, the possibility of being able to crash and burn and find a way where you are scaling back up and having something that can show you where you are, and this to me is so incredible. It's like you look at the map, there's an intuition that comes to you and you can say, I am here, this is where I am, and I'm here, and I'm here, and I'm here. The one of the things that we don't have in order to make those changes is a lot of clarity about where we are, what we want, who we want to become, etc. And looking at the scales, looking at the scale in just this way, if we just open our mind, and I know this could be new to the thousands of people that are listening to this show right now, but let's just play here along and just say, what if there was a scale of potential that you could I actually identify where you are And it makes the thing I liked about what you just said, Jim, is that sometimes bad things happen to good people, like that example of the car accident you just had, where he lost everything and he becomes an alcoholic. I mean, that can happen to anyone at any time, anywhere. And then the ability to just acknowledge your pain and your grief and say, I'm here and I don't know what to do, and then be able to move forward differently, one step at a time, and knowing that the scales of each, where somebody is actually living at a high level and where you are on the scale, it's just where you are. There's no judgment about it. There's just, here you are. And if you want to level up, here's where you go. I love this ability to take personal responsibility and actually have some tool that can help you identify where you are and where you want to be. It's brilliantly done in a precise way, instead of just, I'd like my career to get better, or I'd like my health to get better, or it's the why and how underneath that. Is this the process of Septemics?
What do you mean by this?
Is the scale, the access, the moving through these levels, is this the process of Septemics? Septemics helps you identify, go where, and move. What is Septemics?
Okay, well, basically the way it works is you have a situation. It could be anything: romance, finances, business, psychological. You have some situation, okay? You find one or more of the scales that are relevant to that situation. Most situations, there's more than one scale that will help you. So you take the scale, okay, and you find where you are on that scale, what level you are at. Now, what typically happens is, at first blush, the person will find a bracket. We're talking about a person who doesn't really know Septemics. Just a new guy comes in the room, you hand him the book, he looks at it, he'll find a bracket. He'll say, well, oh yeah, I can see I'm either at 3, 4, or 5. Then you say, okay, let's have you read the text of the chapter. And he'll read it. And when he reads it, then he will understand it. And then you say, okay, now where are you? And he'll say, oh, I can see I'm at level 4. And he will be happy with that because it's the truth. Whatever level he finds, he will be happy with it. Even if it's level 7, the lowest level, because it's the truth. Now, again, I'm not saying you should tell people what
No,
level
I
you're
don't
at.
think. I
That's
love
up
that.
to you.
I love that.
I don't recommend telling people. It's for you to understand. Now, once you know you're at that level, you will be able to get to the next level up, whatever that is, on whatever scale it is, because I have solved the gradient problem. Now, every good coach, teacher, facilitator, therapist in the world understands gradients, even if they don't use that word. Basically, it means you have to go little by little. You have to take the next step. This book tells you the next step.
Cool.
It's across 35 axes. It's the next level up. And you will be able to achieve that. If a person's at level 5, he will be able to achieve level 4. He will not be able to achieve 1, 2, or 3. It's too steep a gradient. So, this has plagued mankind for 6,000 years. People have problems and don't know what to do about them. This book solves that. It tells you with precision what to do about it. You're at this level and you move yourself up one level. And when you're at that higher level, you will be doing better on that axis. You will be more in control. Every level has its own kind of inherent meaning. So you will be doing better. And once you stabilize at that level, you can then go to the next higher level.
Interesting. This is all very,
I
very
should say, there are general scales and specific scales. Now, on the general scale, very often you find your level and you're done with that scale. For example, Every human being has one of 7 basic purposes. The vast majority of people, I would say more than 95%, have one basic purpose for the entire lifetime. It's fairly rare for people to change on that scale. It does happen, and I could give you examples, but
Can you
generally
tell us what the 7 purposes are? Because right now I'm excited about
sure,
that.
I'd be happy to do that. But before I do that, I want to say it's very easy to get confused on this subject if you focus on any particular scale, because every scale is unique. Having said that, I will tell you as briefly as I can what the 7 basic purposes are, okay? The lowest purpose, level 7, is to destroy. Now, this makes no sense to most people, that there are people whose purpose is to destroy.
Yeah.
Adolf Hitler was at this level, and if you study him, you will see he did inherently destructive things. He wasn't only destructive to the Allies, he was destructive to the Germans. He was destructive to his own family. He was a generally destructive person. That was his basic purpose. Okay, up from that at level 6 is what I call the criminal. Now, the criminal, his basic purpose is, his basic objective, you might say, is pleasure. He wants pleasure. Criminals want drugs, alcohol, sex, food, whatever is pleasurable to them.
Yeah.
Okay? And they do not particularly want to kill you, but they will if you get in their way, because they're only interested in pleasure. They don't really have a conscience. So that would be somebody like John Gotti, who died in prison, who was the head of the Gambino crime family. He was a thug. He was a loudmouth, ignorant thug, okay? And he and most professional criminals are at this level. Above that, at level 4, is what I call the loser. The loser is not someone who's doing badly. It's someone who is inherently self-destructive. His objective is to suffer. Now, again, this makes no sense to most people. Normal people do not intend to suffer, but people at this level do. So this is the type of person, if you give him a car, he'll crash it. If you give him a house, he'll burn it down. If you give him $50,000, he'll blow it in Vegas, okay? This person, if you get him off drugs, he'll then become an alcoholic. If you get him off alcohol, he'll then jump off a bridge. These people are inherently self-destructive, and nothing can be done about it, because the person's most basic purpose is to suffer. And those people will make themselves suffer. Some of them do it by being in bad relationships. There's many ways that people make themselves suffer. Above that, at level 4, the midpoint is what I call the normal. The normal's objective is conformity. And you can say, well, conformity is not a good thing. And I'd say, wait a minute. Think about it this way. This person wants to fit in. If people have long hair, he grows his hair long. Yep. When long hair goes out, they cut their hair short. Yep. All right. When mustaches come in, the guy grows a mustache. When mustaches go out, he shaves it off. He wants to fit in. This is demographically the largest group. Okay. These are normal people. They have jobs, they have homes, they have mortgages, they have children. Amazing. They take a vacation for 2 weeks. They don't want to set the world on fire. They just want to fit in. Above that, at level 3, is the winner. The objective of the winner is wealth. Now, wealth doesn't just mean money. It depends on the person. For example, if a guy is a professional football player in the National Football League, he wants to win the Super Bowl. That's wealth to him.
That's right.
You see, he has a trophy. He can say, my team was the best in the world at this time. So that's his form of wealth. You know, some people love horses. They want to have a horse ranch and own horses. That's wealth to them. Horses are expensive. You have to have a lot of money to keep horses. Mm-hmm. So that's their form. Some people want to own a Formula One race car. Very expensive, okay? So you have to realize that wealth is not the same for every person. Mm-hmm. To a singer, it might be to have a Grammy.
Yeah.
Okay. At level 2 is the leader. The leader is down for the struggle. Leaders have terrible things happen to them. Terrible things. Abraham Lincoln saved the Union, ended slavery, and got shot in the back of the head. Okay,
That's
that
it.
is typical for a leader. Okay, these people are not interested in wealth. They're not feathering their own nests. They're trying to conquer something. Lincoln was trying to conquer the Confederacy. Okay, Winston Churchill, another leader, was trying to conquer the Axis powers. So that's what they're about. Now you can say, well, conquest is not a good thing. Well, that's a question of whose ox is being gored. You see, when the Allies conquered the Axis, for most people, that was a good conquest. Even for the people in Japan and Germany and Italy, they did much better when they got rid of those crazy dictators and started getting into the 20th century, and they became rich countries. You see, rich
Yeah.
liberal countries.
Mhm.
So even for them, the conquest was good. Now, the top level is the saint. The objective of the saint is transcendence. The saint is not interested in anything in the material realm. Okay? This is people like Jesus, Siddhartha Gautama, Yogananda.
Yeah.
Such a person, many of those people we never find out about. Many of them are in monasteries, or in rectories, or in nunneries, or in ashrams, or many of them are hermits. Uh, these are people who are trying to uh, transcend this material world. Now,
Absolutely.
if you talk to a Christian, he'll say he wants to die and go to heaven. If you talk to a Buddhist, he might say, well, he wants to attain nirvana. But they're both trying
The
to
same thing.
transcend
That's right.
this world. Okay?
That's right.
So that's the 7 level for the scale of basic. So, of
That's
course,
brilliant.
now that scale tells you absolutely nothing about the other 34 scales.
Agreed. But what is interesting about what you said was, if I'm going to use the word, karmic identification with a particular purpose, whether it's destructive or transcendent. And I love that you name them in that way, because for me, as you started saying these things, I was like, oh, definitely number 4, number 5, number 6. I can see how that the up leveling has happened, because to me, it's like when you said your purpose can't shift very much. Like Hitler was very destructive. That's what he was. And maybe when you talked about the winner or the leader, you talked about Abraham Lincoln, and I thought of Steve Jobs, where he tried to bring something into the world that wasn't here yet, which the smartphone or whatever else. And, he brought Apple in, or maybe Bill Gates in that, into the business leadership, where they're often vilified once you get to your position. There's, you build this great thing that the world uses constantly, and you're now a billionaire, and you're vilified for being a billionaire, or you're vilified for your beliefs or whatever it is, etc., which could be seen as being shot in the head, etc. And I love that you named them in that way. And I was like, I knew of examples in my life where I was here and went to here, or in that leveling up in the mind, when you give up all of the transitions. To me, that to me is also part of waking up consciously, not just in your human identity or your human realm, but waking up somehow let's see, waking up. How do I say this? I don't know what adjective to use, because it's not really waking up. It's transcending or becoming aware of or outgrowing something. Like, when you're 12 years old, you want to play with Barbies, and then suddenly you don't want to play with Barbies anymore. It's not because you hate Barbies or Barbies are boring now. It's just that you've outgrown that particular, area where you're mind is now not interested in being a loser, so now you want to try to become a winner. And I'm now back to, if that's your purpose and it's hard to move from your purpose, then how do you move up that scale of these 7 purposes, if you want to, because they look scalable to me, they sound scalable to me.
Well, that's where the science comes in. And I could explain this to you better if I tell you how I discovered this subject. Remember, I was telling you that I was working with my clients and I started observing that they were going up scales, and I started writing down these scales.
Yeah.
After many decades, I had a whole collection of these scales. Some of them, the length of them was between 3 and 7, because I just wrote what I observed. Now, in 1995, I had one scale in particular, the one that I just told you about, that had, at the time, it had 6 levels. And I absolutely knew axiomatically from direct observation that it was correct. Now, I realized in 95 that it had a 7th level. And when I inserted that 7th level into the 6th level scale, it suddenly manifested mathematically.
Interesting.
Now, a scale is linear. And what happened is it went from being linear to planar, meaning it has to be expressed in a table.
Oh, I see.
Now, having taken 26 semesters of math and coming from a hard science background, when I saw that, I said, whoa, this is natural law. Anything that has mathematics embedded in it is natural law. Now, when I observed that, I thought, this is big. And then I asked myself, I wonder how many of these other scales that I have are actually 7-level scales that had not been developed all the way, because I wasn't developing anything. I was just helping my clients and making notes. So knowing what I was looking for, I looked at these other scales, the other 32 scales, whatever it was I had at the time. And because I knew what I was looking for, I was able to derive the other steps. In other words, these scales each went to 7. And as they did, each of them manifested mathematically. So it went from being a line to a plane.
Interesting.
Now then I said, whoa, this is a subject. I have stumbled across something here. So I said, I can go from helping people by the hundreds, which is what I was doing as human development engineer, to helping people by the millions by putting this in a book and getting it out. So I said, okay, I'm going to have to put this in a book. So that's when I started writing the book. The first version of the book was completed December of 95, and I gave it to colleagues of mine, all of whom had graduate degrees in various subjects. And they all loved it. They had different responses, but the responses were distinctly positive. That told me, okay, this is exactly what I think it is. It's natural law. So then I spent the next 25 years of my life working on this book. So you have to realize, first I had to discover the phenomena.
Yeah.
And that was largely done by 95, although I did find 3 more scales as I was writing the book. Then I had to take that phenomena and use it to craft a workable philosophic system. That took 20 years. Then I had to express this in a way that would make sense to the average reader. That was very time consuming. This is an 86,000 word book.
Yes.
And I literally had to go through word by word, asking myself, how are people going to interpret this? Now, I had 25 years of rewriting it, giving it to people, clients, associates, and so forth, getting feedback, changing it, rewriting it, getting it out to other people, okay? So I spent 25 years perfecting this until I got it to a point where it's foolproof. If you can read English reasonably well and you want to improve yourself or others, this book is for you. And it will succeed. There is no vagueness in this. You have to understand, I'm an engineer. Engineers are only interested in results and facts. We're not interested in opinions or beliefs. There are no opinions or beliefs in Septemics. I observed these thousands and thousands of times. And then when I started working on the philosophy, I worked out the mechanics of it. For example, you asked me about moving up on the scale of basic purposes. If you study that scale, you'll see that there is a reversal of polarity in between the scales. 7 of the scales are like this. In other words, some of the scales are what you might call inflow, and some of them are what you might call outflow. So, for example, if you're at a level that's an inflow, you have to completely reverse your polarity into outflow to get to the next level. That is not easy. That is a major transformation. Now, this is not a new concept. I understand this in Oriental religions and philosophy, reversal of polarity. When a person undergoes a major metamorphosis, okay, that takes a long time, that's a reversal of polarity. And that would enable you to get to the next higher level.
You are blowing my mind. This is revolutionary what you're talking about. I'm absolutely blown away by what you just said. The possibilities, when you first came on, you made a very big claim. And I'm starting to see how that claim can be fulfilled. That claim about the world and how it would be in the world if we utilize this. And I'm going to tell everybody right now, this show right now, I didn't get to read the book. And I promise you, when I am done with this show and I'm done talking to him, I'm going to read that book today. I'm going to go over to Amazon, find that book, and tell me the name of the book, Jim, because I haven't gotten to read it yet.
It's called Septemics, Hierarchies of Human Phenomena.
Septemics, Hierarchies of Human Phenomenon on Amazon.
I'll tell you right now. I'll tell you right now. Even if your IQ is 200, you cannot read this book in one day. That is not
well,
possible.
That's okay. I will take the week and read this book. That's all I'm interested in. I'm interested because I think what is interesting about what you've done is, now I know you're a scientist and blah, blah, blah. I get all of that. But you have to have a level of awareness to identify what you saw and the dots there. That level of awareness is a needle in a haystack, a grain of sand on the beach. To have the awareness, not just the capacity, but the awareness to even identify and see what isn't there that is there. It's seeing the unseen and taking the unseen in such a way and studying it to make it palatable for the average person. I mean, this is, talk about leaving a legacy. This book right here is the legacy that you're leaving. And the thing is, what did you have to do to gather that level of awareness? And you seem to have had it when you came in, because you were, on your way to your degree at 16. So this is not somebody who came in with, your purpose was pretty big to bring this body of work that has taken your lifetime in so that other people can see a faster, clearer, more expedient way to get where they want to be. And that, to me, that whole thing is so exciting. I mean, it's blown my mind, the scales and the things. And I know that maybe this kind of thing isn't understandable for the layman, but when you read the book, he just said, it doesn't matter what your IQ is, doesn't matter. You can just sit down and read the book and it will make sense to you. And that transformation can start happening. And that's what I believe you're sharing with us today. Is that true? Do I have that right for you?
Yes. Yes, I would say the main thing you need is literacy. In other words, you have to be able to read. Now, remember I said there's a scale of literacy. Most people think of literacy in a binary way. Either you're literate or you're illiterate.
That's right.
That is not true. There are 7 levels of literacy. So someone who is at the bottom of the scale of literacy is going to have difficulty reading anything.
That's correct.
So that is a kind of a prerequisite. That's why I say you have to be able to read English reasonably well. Now, here's what I tell all of my clients and so forth, my readers who are interested in this. Here's how to master this. This is a textbook on a new subject. So you should start at the first line of page 1 and study it the way you would study a chemistry text, a math text, a physics text, line by line, including
And
all the
highlighting
glosses.
those things that are
Don't
really
go,
great. Yeah.
don't go past anything you don't understand. Make sure you understand. And when you get to the end of the book, go back to the beginning, read it again. And when you come to each of the 35 skills, find your level on that scale. And by the time you get to the end of the second reading, you will have found your level on 35 skills. You will be a new person.
I
You will be
believe
a
that.
great, clarified person. Now, to answer your question, because you inquired before about sort of how I got to this, there are a couple of answers to this. One is that I was a born polymath, meaning I have no memory of a time when I was not intensely interested in learning everything taught in every university. I went to school for 28 years, and I was an honor and scholarship student at every level. I've been involved in education from the age of 3, and I'm still involved in it. So that's one part of it. The other thing is that I have over 50 years of experience in meditation. I have been meditating every day for most of my life.
And thus your
And
level of awareness. Brilliant.
right. So each session that I have clarifies my mind somewhat. So it is a cumulative clarification. The other thing you have to realize is that the progress in meditation is not linear, it's geometric, meaning like the process, the gains that I had in my last session were greater than the gains that I had in the previous session. And that goes all the way back to the beginning. So because of the meditation and other similar activities, my mind kept getting clearer. And the result of this was that my perception is superior. The main thing that makes me different from everybody else I know is that my ability to perceive is better. So there have been hundreds of situations where I'm in a room with a bunch of people, something happens, and I see something in it that they don't see. I see it and they don't see it. So that's how I was able to see this. I looked at this phenomena and I said, oh, this is a scale. And I just collected the data. And you have to realize that I collected the data as a result of my sessions. But once I developed a scale of whatever length, I would walk around in life and see it happening right in front of me. I mean, I turn on a video and I see a person is at a certain level. I can meet a person. I can
Yes.
meet a person, listen to the guy speak for 15 seconds and know what level he's on the scale of literacy.
Wow.
I can talk to a student. I've done a lot of tutoring. I can talk to a student for 10 minutes and know where he is on the scale of scholarship. I will not tell him that, but I know, and so it helps me to know how to approach him, how to help him. That's why I've been very successful as a tutor, because I can sort of have insight into the student as what's going on with this person. What is the deal with this person? So between the meditation and the scholarliness, I just kept developing. And you have to realize that those two things feed back into one another. Because the more I meditated, the more clear I became, the more insightful I became. And so then I would be more inquisitive and want to study more things.
See more
So,
things.
yeah,
Beautiful.
so for example, I can tell you, I know, not guess, I know the basic purpose of every president of the United States, going back as far as Franklin Delano Roosevelt,
Wow.
and many of the presidents prior, such as Lincoln and Jefferson and Washington, who I studied. You see, this material is not hard to use if you know what it is. People tell you their basic purposes. People tell you their level of literacy. People tell you their motivations across 35 axes. So if you listen to people and observe them, see what they do, and do what they say, they tell you what level they're. So therefore, I can absolutely guarantee to any reader, if you master this book, it will save you from catastrophes,
Yeah.
disasters, dilemmas, bankruptcies, lawsuits, indictments, and so forth, because you are forewarned. Now, this book, the subtitle of it is Analysis, Prediction, and Management of Human Affairs. You can analyze a person, and because you can analyze the person, you can predict what this person is going to do or say. So for
Yeah.
me, I am very rarely surprised by anything anyone does or says, unless it's someone who I never saw before. But I can meet some guy via the internet, okay, and have some insight into him because people tell you their levels. This is not hard to see. It's just like a botanist can look at different types of plants. Let's say this is a chrysanthemum, this is a rose, and because he knows the subject.
Yes. Let me
Similarly,
ask you something. Over the years, because what I feel, the reason I want to do this, A, I want to find out where I'm at and where I want to go. But the second thing is, I believe that having an understanding in this way, all I can feel is a sense of compassion growing in me as I learn about others. And it's not so much you're judging them, it's just that you're noticing them. You're noticing where they at. So you have no dog in the fight after this. And the having empathy and compassion and understanding of where somebody's at, you can also have admiration for their journey, for where they've been, for what they've done. And I understand that this is, I know that he's saying it very scientifically, but I think what it will do for the world emotionally and spiritually and everything else that is alive, the things that I really think are important to me, that to me is some of the most fundamental. It if everybody read this book, the transformation that could happen around the world is, it's off the charts. It's mind-blowing what could really happen.
yes.
And that whole thing is worthy of, if I said to you right now, you could do one thing to change the world, and that would be to read this book and share it with somebody. Share it with somebody that you love, that you care about, that you care about their well being. If you could read the book in the exact way he did it, read it all the way through, highlight it like a textbook, go back and find where you are on the scales. Don't just learn about it, but find it and be able to say, this really impacted me, and pass that book on to someone else. Go get them a copy for Christmas or birthday or whatever it is. Just pass that book around. Imagine the ripple effect that would happen in the world if we did that. So I'm going to take that challenge. I'm not just going to ask you to go buy the book and read it. I'm going to read it and I'm going to share it out. And Jim, after I read it, I really think that I want to have you back on the show so that we can go into a deeper discussion of it. Um, right now, I'm so excited about the proposition and the awareness and what you did as a body of work. I mean, 50 years. This is your body of work to make a difference in the world. It's blowing my mind, and I was totally unexpected. I thought it was going to be something completely different when we had this conversation together. But I am so into self-development myself. But the way you have it in its simplicity, if we started young and everybody started now, it could just transform everything. Um, Jim, what if somebody is saying, I'd like to work with him? Because I know that you work with people, etc. Where can they get a hold of you? What can they do? And if you're driving in the car and you're listening and you're on iHeartRadio or Pandora, wherever you are, relax. It's going to be in the show notes. Everything is there. His website, everything is going to be in the show notes. Drive safely to where you're going. And then you can access the show, access the book, access everything. It'll be in the show notes for the show. How can they work with you? How can they get a hold of you?
Well, I invite your viewers to go to septemics.com, Septemics, where you can read what many readers of the book have said about it. You can read what many journalists have written about it. You can read the reviews, and you can read sections of the book itself. And my contact information is available through the website. So there's a massive amount of data on the website. It's created to help new people to see what is this and how it can help you.
This is so cool, Jim. I'm just like, Wayne Dyer, who I really respect, he used to say, change the way you look at things and the things you look at will change. And I believe that Jim's book is the how to do that, not just the saying of do that, but the how to of doing that. I can't wait to read it. I promise I'm going to have him back again on the show. I promise you guys, he will be back. We'll be talking more deeply about this. But if you go to septemics.com, and it's septemics.com, Septemics, with an S at the end of it, you will be able to connect with him, get a copy of the book today. And somebody sitting on the fence who's feeling in that crash spot and he's thinking, I don't know, I'm at rock bottom. I don't know how to get my way out. Outside of getting the book, what would you say to them right now?
Well, first of all, I want to say this is all about insight. You need some insight to use this. A person who lacks insight is at the bottom of one or more of these scales. The reason a person is at or near the bottom of a scale is because he lacks insight. The reason a person is at or near the top of a scale is because he has insight. Also, the subject develops insight. So you have to bring enough insight to it to be able to inspect yourself or inspect another person and say, I'm at this level or she's at this level. That takes some insight. But then as you use it, you develop your insight. So your ability to use it becomes greater. So the more you use this book, the more your insight will improve. And so the more you'll be able to use the book to improve your insight. So it's like this cascading development of insight as you use the material. And I want to say one thing very specifically. The data in this book are vital for every person and can help you to achieve your goals faster and easier by explaining what might otherwise seem to be inexplicable or random. If someone were to invite you to a rendezvous, you would certainly expect them to tell you the date, the time, the location, and perhaps also how to get there. Needless to say, it's very difficult to get somewhere if you don't know where you are, don't know where you're going, and don't know how to get to your destination. Now, this sounds idiotic, but most people do this regularly, so much so that it's considered normal. This book completely undercuts that problem because it tells you across 35 axes where you are, what the next level is that you should be shooting for, and it also tells you where you will fall down to if you fail.
That's so interesting right away. I can't wait to read it, Jim. I want to thank you for being on the Coffee Break Show today. It has been I'm absolutely, I don't know, expanded is the word I will use. Right now, I pride myself on bringing the best experts on this show to help people with their business, family, and life. And I want to just thank you for being on the show today. You guys go out and get a copy of that book. I'm going to do that right now. Go out right now. Do that right now. It is some of the best money you're going to be spending. If you're going to spend anything on personal development this next year or for the rest of your life, this is a place to spend it to you right now. Jim, thank you for being on the Coffee Break Show today. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you,
All right.
Vickie.
Thank you. All right. Listen, I'll see you next week where, we're going to have another fabulous guest. I'll see you then.